Hello, everyone. Let's get started. My name is Karen Hardy. I'm the CMO of Blockchain Laboratories, and I'd like to welcome you to this ESG Digital Assets webinar called Transforming Web3 for People and Planet. This is following the kickoff event at COP28. We have a fabulous lineup of speakers today and announcements as well, from Blockchain Laboratories, Intrinsic Methods, GBBC, and Palisade. They're all going to introduce themselves during their presentations. We also have a great agenda and set of content for you. You're going to learn about the Web3 market and Web3 SaaS technology, how intrinsic methods are accelerating reforestation and combining this with distributed ledger technology. The importance of market standards to bring a common language for describing and classifying tokens, and how you can protect your digital assets, especially from private loss or theft. And then we're going to put it all together, and we're going to show you a live demonstration with the launch of Web3 SaaS with a reforestation project that's underway in Brazil. So please stay to watch the demonstration. You can start to add your questions along the way in the Q&A section or in the chat box, and we'll answer as many as possible during the roundtable. Now, when you signed up for this webinar, we asked you a couple of questions. What was top of mind for you in terms of environmental or societal challenges that you felt Web3 could solve? And also how you'd like to stay involved in Web3 solutions for a better future. On the right-hand side, we've created a little bit of a heat word map in terms of your responses, and we really appreciate these. But there's a lot of ones that pop out in terms of learning and support, Web3 transitioning, climate change, women's equality, employee data ownership, and more. These topics are really important, and we plan to provide more webinars, opportunities, and content for you in the future. And you have a chance to speak and sponsor these events as well. On today's webinar, we're going to hone in on nature-based solutions that are expected to provide 30% of the pathway to net zero in 2050. And we're going to look at some of the ways in which we can solve the dilemma in the current voluntary carbon and biodiversity markets with higher quality and greater transparency. And also expanding how we can supply to include smaller private landowners who are currently excluded due to cost. Something that Dr. Jane Goodall spoke about recently at the World Economic Forum in Davos in January was the importance of not only technology and protecting forests, but also thinking long-term and planting trees for helping to solve climate change. And this is something that Jim Duggan from Intrinsic Methods is going to speak about shortly in terms of how the growth of trees can be accelerated and technology brought in as well. So with that backdrop, I'm going to hand you over to Boone Bergsma, the CEO of Blockchain Laboratories.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen. As mentioned, my name is Boone Bergsma. I'm the CEO of Blockchain Laboratories. Blockchain Laboratories, we're a Web3 venture studio focused on building impactful applications in this Web3 space. Next slide, please. For those that maybe aren't feeling familiar, this might be overview for some that are, but really the World Wide Web has gone through an evolution, and Web 1 was really this read-only internet, and Web 2 was more of a read-write where there was an engagement level in the internet. And the age of Web 3 is really about this read, write, and own. And the technology involved in DLT and blockchain is really kind of revolutionizing how we think about ownership and data on the internet. Next slide, please. Our focus has really been on building what we call Web3 SaaS technologies, and it we call it W3 SaaS. And the premise behind this is some of you might be familiar with software as a service from things like Salesforce or HubSpot, where that software helps you manage sales and marketing flows. Well, similarly, W3 SaaS is a software as a service that is all about digital asset management and tokenization workflows. And we've developed this tech stack really to be white labeled for any industry use case. It doesn't matter if it's tangible or intangible. And in today's webinar, we're going to show how this tech stack has been white labeled for carbon credit tokenization from intrinsic methods reforestation projects. Next slide, please. To understand a little bit of why this matters and why it's important is, right now the carbon markets, voluntary carbon markets, they have problems with trust and transparency. And really, DLT technology brings a whole nother level of auditability, accountability to the whole life cycle of a carbon credit. And leveraging the XRP ledger is a layer 1 network that was the first carbon neutral blockchain. And so as a carbon credit registry, it was also very important for this tech stack that to be tokenizing carbon credits, you want to be using a technology that has a very low carbon footprint itself. And the way that this is set up as a registry, each ecological project has its own segregated XRPL account. And those accounts are holding NFTs that hold data and also issuing the tokens that are used for the credits. Next slide, please. This all comes together with the partners that are on the meeting today. And during the demo, we'll really demonstrate how Interwork Alliance and Palisade Solutions and XRP Ledger are all being used to bring together this really cutting-edge carbon credit registry. And I will pass it off to Jim Dugan. Thank you very much.
Well, Boone, thank you very much. We're really excited today. This is the official launch of Intrinsic Methods. And our mission is to be the leader in nature-based carbon removal credits. We want to have the most reliable and verifiable credits available today. And there's no better vehicle for removing carbon than a tree. There's nothing available better than a tree. Next slide. Second, what is the problem we're trying to solve? And if you look at all the major reforestation projects, they're failing. And under the current methodologies that we're using for reforestation, we will never meet our 1 trillion tree goal or million trees. There has to be a better way to link project with carbon users and how we do our projects. So we got to our benefits. The problem we see is nobody knows how to grow trees. And what we've done is we've created an exclusive partnership with Rootmaker, our key partner, with their certified growers, where we will create reforestation projects for billions of trees and change the direction of carbon of the climate crisis. We're going to have a direct access to reforestation projects for carbon users and a complete transparency using third-party verification and geospatial verification. This will allow us to quickly grow billions of trees. Next slide. Our registry is the only one that's going to emphasize the importance of growing trees and trees that thrive. And how do we do that? We use the Rootmaker technology. This is a sample of a tree that was grown in Arkansas. If you look to the right, that is a black oak that is 8 years old compared to a bare root tree. It grows 2 to 3 times faster, but more importantly, it sequesters 2 to 3 times more carbon And this technology can absolutely transform how we reforest. Next slide. Now we've shown you how we do, why we're going to be the most reliable. Now, how are we going to verify? We're using distributed ledger technology built on the XRP ledger. This will support providing full transparency through the entire credit lifecycle and pricing. Now, why did we choose the XRP ledger to verify our carbon removal credits? They're the fastest and most efficient of all the cryptocurrencies for digital assets we could find. But more importantly, it only uses about the same amount of power as a debit card. There are low transaction fees, and it's so flexible that you can use multiple cryptocurrencies and fiat currencies. Next slide. Now, what's the opportunity? Several of the market research firms show that there's a $1 trillion addressable market to build a fully inclusive carbon market. Our focus obviously is going to be on growing trees. We are very, very excited about growing trees, and nobody does it better than we do. Right now, the current number of trees, if in a perfect world, if we had all our PFMUs sponsored, we have a backlog of 1 billion trees. But specifically, our target market is about 10 billion in the voluntary credit market for carbon removal credits. Next slide. So what's our growth strategy? We're launching Intrinsic Methods, our carbon registry today. To the right is a picture of 500,000 bald cypresses being planted, or actually already planted, in South Louisiana. If you look at those trees, they're only 15 weeks old. They'll be about 5 feet tall before they're planted. In 2017, we planted 500,000 trees in Pointe-aux-Chenes, Louisiana, and today it's a complete canopy. That shows the power of the technology we're using for growing trees. Next month, we're planning on onboarding more of our reforestation projects from multiple countries, including Haiti, Mongolia. We're looking at UAE. Obviously, South Florida is not another country, but also the Appalachians. But more importantly, we're also branching out into blue carbon projects in UAE. We're finding that the mangroves and replenishing these and reforestation projects does a tremendous amount of improvement to the environment. And we're gathering feedback from all our reforestation partners to expand our offerings in the future, because we want to be the leader in nature-based carbon removal credits. Next slide. Want to thank everyone for coming and listening to our presentation today. If you have any interest in looking at our carbon removal credits, please contact us. Or if you have a project, we'd love to speak with you. But most importantly, planting a tree is really a small portion of the climate crisis. When you plant a tree, you bring back the pollinators, you bring back the birds, the animals, you improve the soil, the water table. You basically create an ecology that now has biodiversity and makes the world a better place. And ultimately, that's what our goal is. We want to plant trees to make this world a better place. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. That's wonderful. Okay, handing it over to Paul Rapino now to talk about market standards and its importance here.
Thank you, Karen. Jim, thanks for your passion. It was great to see your overview. Boone, thank you for the invite. And we at GBBC love being part of this project. We both live in Washington State. So Boone, I remember 2 or 3 years ago when we first met, and it was a dream and a vision. And it's so great to see you continue to invest and pull things together, bringing in people like Karen, got to spend time with her at Davos, so it was fantastic to really get to know more about what the business is doing. What I want to do is talk briefly about market standards. But first, I just want to update you. So I was at GBBC for 4 years, and it's a fantastic group. Shout out to Sandra Rowe and Jackson Ross and others who have been instrumental in helping us really move forward on these market standards. Last week, actually, I moved over to the HBAR Foundation and Business Development. I am not the leader in sustainability. That'll still continue to be Wes Geisenberger. If you don't know him, let me know or let Karen know. We'll put you in touch with him. But Wes is the HBAR expert on sustainable impact. But what I want to do today is talk about a project that we as an industry have all worked on, including HBAR and Ripple and others, as well as Boone, since he's been on our a member of GBBC. So you can go to the next slide. Real quick, the Interwork Alliance was started years ago, about 5 years ago, by Microsoft and Accenture and others. A lot of credible companies came together because the belief was that we had to have a business-driven standards organization that would define what the taxonomy would actually be, what the token would do, develop a framework for tokenization, and then do it with open source software standards. And that's what we're going to talk about today. If you can go to the next slide. So I just mentioned this, so we'll skip by this, put some slides in here that I want to have as a library for those who are listening, as there's a lot of good resources here. I want to spend some time on this slide. This is the blueprint for how we are developing, the GBBC and IWA members are developing the tokenization standards. It starts, first of all, by a vision from the business side of what the business use case is going to be. And once that is being defined, we bring the members together and start to define what the actual use case is going to require from start to finish. So you can see here the, we collaborate and then we start to build together what the token taxonomy is going to be. What are things going to be called? What is the ecosystem? How is it defined? And within that ecosystem, who are the buyers? Who are the sellers? And how is how are the tokenization or tokenomics going to actually work in that ecosystem? And once that is defined, we then work with our technical groups, our members at the GBBC who have technical insights on software development, and they start to develop the code called the token taxonomy. It's built on this framework and it's open source, and then members actually can start to take it. Actually, it's open source, so it's non-members too can start to take it and build it into their products and solutions, which is what we're going to see today when Boone presents to us. The future vision and why it's valuable, to answer the question about implementation, it's okay to build something on your own, but then you have to go out and explain it to partner one and partner two, et cetera, to build a marketplace. Having a standard in place, first of all, it gives you credibility, especially with when companies are buying into it like they are with our token taxonomy framework. But it also helps you scale, helps a company scale to new customers, new products, new solutions, because the basic taxonomy and standards are already in place. So this is the baseline framework called the token framework. We also help with this the smart contracts, and then the analytics piece of it as well will continue, especially as AI becomes a piece of what the industry is converging toward. Next slide. So real quick, we have three groups that are in place. I mentioned the voluntary carbon markets and the carbon emission token. Marley Gray at Microsoft is the lead on the voluntary carbon markets, and Wes at HBAR is leading the carbon emission tokens. And then we have an energy tokenization white paper out as well that our members are driving. There's a few others, but this will all be available on the website I'll point out in just a minute. But the point being is you don't just come up with an idea. You have to collaborate with other companies, other partners, and then really define a specific use case. Otherwise, it's too broad to actually try to solve anything. And the other beauty of this and the other benefit is once policymakers, regulators, people on the legal side start to see that our standards are in place, they could define, there's a definition about what they're trying to build policy or regulation around. So we've seen great wins and understanding on bringing the business side and the policy side together to actually talk about a specific use case as opposed to something that might be considered vaporware. So let's go to the next slide. I just skip through some of these. I won't go through this, but I want, if you do get this, when Karen distributes the deck, I think it's a really good overview of how Microsoft actually went from standards to implementation and how they brought their partners into the ecosystem in the same way that Boone and Blockchain Labs is going to continue to do that. You'll see a really nice step-by-step use case on how Microsoft defined it, and it's very interesting to spend some time in this. But wanted to point that out, and then let's go to the next slide, Karen. The other important piece of this is bringing partners together. So once you have a standard and a vision of what you're doing, and there's unity or alignment of what you are doing, and really more importantly, what you're not doing, it helps people see the difference and where there's opportunities to really lean in. So in this case, these are several of the companies that we collaborate with. And once you have a white paper and a definition and a taxonomy, it makes these conversations much more productive. So it also helps to keep us from running into each other on what we're trying to define in terms of standards and use cases. Next slide. And again, I mentioned some of these in the earlier slide, but you'll see the companies that have collaborated include Accenture and Blockchain Labs and Hedera, Microsoft. NASDAQ has been a big proponent, Digital Asset, HBAR Foundation, et cetera. So in the Leave Behind, you will get access to all these use cases. Next slide. So in summary, what are the ways that these will help with competitive advantage? Well, partnerships and relationships grow an ecosystem, as I mentioned. Having that common language and the open source standards and code, speed time to market. I mentioned standards are giving regulators and investors more confidence in what's actually being developed. And then once there is a standard in the market, the credibility is significant to be able to talk about what's being endorsed and how it's being used in the marketplace. Next slide. So these are our references. Please take a look. If you have any questions, next slide, Karen. You can reach out to the membership at GBBC. You can reach me through Karen, and we'll put you in touch with Jackson Ross, who is our head of the Interwork Alliance, and give you more insight on how GBBC and the IWA can continue to work with you on these standards. But again, Boone and Karen, thank you again for the invitation, and glad that we can be part of it.
Great, thank you, Paul. And great again to meet you in person over in Davos, and look forward to our continued partnership with you as well. Please don't forget to add any questions that you have along the way in the chat box, and we'll go through those questions during the roundtable. Now, there's nothing like bringing market standards, but also looking at security as well. So Tom is now going to talk about the protection of your digital assets.
Thank you so much, Karen, and thank you, Paul. If we can just go to the next slide and then the one after that, actually. Thank you. So a quick introduction. My name is Thomas Kiddle. I'm the co-founder of a company called Palisade. But over the last 15 to 20 years, I've been primarily a software engineer, working largely in the payment space. solving problems around e-commerce, retail payments, and cross-border remittances. Before founding Palisade, I spent 5 years at Ripple building products to solve cross-border payments problems, but also building products on top of the XRP ledger. Today, I am the co-founder of a company called Palisade, as I said. Palisade is what we describe as being a full spectrum digital asset custody provider. If you could go to the next slide, please, Karen. And essentially what we do at Palisade is solve some big problems around private key misuse and theft. One of the core promises of the product really is to provision a private key and then secure that private key, enabling you to use your assets as and when you please. So to really talk about the scale of the problem, over the last 10 or so years, we've seen over $100 billion worth of assets either lost, stolen, or misappropriated. And if you go to the next slide, I've highlighted a few of the key issues here and the key reasons for this. So scams and fraud is a very big one. We're seeing fraud total billions and billions of dollars. And I'm going to get into some different types of phishing and fraud that has happened over the last 5 or 6 years. Poor asset access controls around private keys is another major pain point for clients. Private key loss or theft is also a big one. And then, as I touched on previously, misappropriation of assets and customer funds, as we've seen relatively recently with FTX. If you could go to the next slide, please. So Palisade is an enterprise-grade digital asset custody and Web3 wallet company, as I mentioned. But a few key highlights to sort of pull out here. We are regulated in France under the AMF as a virtual asset service provider, specifically with the ability to custody customers' funds. We've been audited by one of the largest cybersecurity firms globally, the NCC Group, and the product enables our clients to build out a composable wallet infrastructure, or for us to actually provision the private key for them using our HSM solution. We provide clients with policy and governance tools around their assets and the ability to access those assets using either an API or an intuitive user interface. And then beyond that, you can start to access the wider DeFi and Web3 ecosystem. If you can go to the next slide, please, Karen. Thank you. So over the last 2 years, we've built out a world-class team of engineers and designers, product designers, and a world-class compliance team to actually serve the clients that we have on the platform today. If you could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So the platform at a glance, everything that we build really centers around these components at the bottom, these green components. We have the MPC wallets and the HSM wallet technology. And then we also have a policy engine that actually governs the access to the MPC wallets, the private keys, and the assets that live within them. On top of that, we have our ecosystem integrations. So this is connections into exchanges, DEXs, liquidity pools, and blockchains. And then we have compliance tooling to ensure that we are compliant with travel rule, KYT and KYC obligations. And then on that, we have the access point. So that's either the API or the user interface. On top of all of this, you can start to build out your use cases. So in the case of blockchain laboratories and intrinsic methods, you have a platform, a secure platform to start building out tokenization use cases. If you could go to the next slide, please. So at the core of all of this, we have what we call our transaction governance. Essentially, each transaction that is requested on the platform goes through a series of different steps to ensure its integrity, but also that the requester is who they say they are. So the first step is the authorization and authentication of both the transaction, but also the requester. And then we go into a policy check stage where we start to check the things like the key limits and the counterparty that you're transacting with to ensure that you are actually enabled to transact with that counterparty for that amount. Then we go through to a compliance stage where we do checks such as KYT and travel rule to ensure that, again, that counterparty is legitimate and they've not been caught up in any recent scams or fraud. Then we go through to a signing stage where we start to sign the transaction with the private key, and that's either stored in MPC, so there could be multiple signers in there, or on a HSM, which is where Palisade would sign that using its HSMs. And then we broadcast that to the blockchain. If you could go to the next slide, please, Karen. Thank you. So Palisade can support, as I said, multiple different key stores. But with those, we can actually provide a really composable private key and wallet solution. So I'm going to very quickly run through a few different configurations. So in this example here, Palisade is providing what we call sub-custody, meaning the organization, as you can see there on the right, holds all of the private keys or all of the private key shares. And Palisade is just a technology provider, providing the MPC protocol and then the access to the blockchain and the underlying assets and transactions. If you can go to the next slide, please, Karen. Thank you. And then we have a shared custody wallet solution or configuration. Palisade, again, in this setup, is a pure technology provider, providing just the MPC and the transaction management, but the key shares and the private keys live with a series of trusted third parties and the organization themselves. So in a setup like this, you would have two trusted third parties in the organization, and they can all participate in the signing ceremony of a transaction. If you could go to the next slide, thank you. And then something we're developing at the moment is a non-custodial wallet solution. So in this instance, Palisade can provide just the technology or can provide the technology and a recovery and backup mechanism. In the example that you see here, the organization is really just a proxy to the Palisade platform, and the end user is holding the key shares that pertain to the underlying wallet. The end user in this example here has the ability to eject the private key and move that to another platform if they desire, but also they're the only actor that's able to sign a transaction or initiate a transaction. So you're getting, as an end user, you're getting that non-custodial experience and the ownership, but you're also getting the protection that comes with using a third-party policy engine and custody platforms such as Palisade. And then finally, we can also offer what we call a delegated custody solution. So this is where all of the management is done by Palisade. We can provide you with either a HSM or an MPC setup, but essentially Palisade is holding the whole private key or all of the key shares here. The organization in this example is just accessing the assets through the API or the UI, and then they can really just focus on their business use case that they're building on top of the platform. Next slide, please. Thank you. So in terms of use cases, on the blockchain, we can support various use cases around tokenization, but Palisade tries to remain really agnostic to the use case that the client brings. And so we can support anything from wallets and exchanges, trading activities, in-game economics, it could be tokenization, NFTs and collectibles, treasury management, or payments and transfers. But the one we've been working on recently, if you can go to the next slide, is an ecological project or use case with intrinsic methods and blockchain laboratories, where we are essentially tokenizing ecological assets. And I think this is probably a good segue actually for the demo, where we get to see it all come together. So I think what we're going to see here is intrinsic methods, blockchain laboratories, technology stack, and then Palisade's wallets and transaction signing all come together to provide an end-to-end solution.
Brilliant setup, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
So yeah, I know there's a lot of content that we've covered, but it's all really important, and actually it knits together right from understanding the Web3 market, what W3 SaaS is, which Boone is now going to show you. Jim, in terms of what you're doing around reforestation projects around the world and using this technology, but also more importantly, the market standards and the security that's around this is critical. So with that, I think we're going to see the demonstration now and continue to add your questions. Over to you, Boone.
Thank you. Just to confirm, everyone can see my screen, correct?
Yes, we can.
So again, we just kind of learned about multiple partners that are involved in this stack, and now we're going to see how it all pulls together. So what we're looking at here is this is Intrinsic Methods registry home screen. In the future, as Jim mentioned, he's working on other projects in other global locations. Currently, right now, their project in Brazil is live on the registry. And what we're looking at, as I mentioned before, each one of these ecological projects is represented by their own segregated XRPL account. And this profile is really an explorer of that account and a records repository. And so over here on the status, you can see that there's multiple status is that some that have been reached and some that haven't been reached. And what these represent are, these are NFTs that are minted during the process of these projects at different points. And these NFTs are being used to represent the records of the ecological projects. And as we scroll down here, I'm going to dig into that a little bit more, but just to kind of give you an overview of what you're looking at the profile here. So inside of each ecological project, the XRP ledger has a DEX built in natively to the layer 1. So unlike some other chains out there where you create smart contracts and things to create these functionalities, a DEX is a native functionality of the XRP ledger. And so through that, the profile page is set up that what we're looking at now, these are all sell offers for the PFMUs from this ecological project. And just for those, again, the PFMU stands for a pre-purchase future mitigated unit. So these are futures contracts on the carbon credits that will be coming from these reforestation projects. And so by buying a PFMU, you're actually creating the funding for the ecological project to grow the trees, buy the trees, plant the trees. There's a lot of work that goes into getting trees in the ground before they can, go through the MRB process and actually issue the carbon credits. And so profiles are set up in two ways: that the project is created, the ecological DID is minted, the pre-purchase agreement tokens are minted, and these are sold first to fundraise the project. And then as trees are planted, the rest of these NFTs are minted. And so just to give you an example of what I mean by this, so what we're looking at now, this is a NFT minting transaction where real quick, I'll go in here. So this is representing the ecological projects account on the XRP ledger, and all the tokens that are issued for this ecological project are held within this segregated account. So if I go back here and look at this NFT mint transaction, this is an explorer of the XRP ledger. So this is a NFT on the XRP ledger, and you can see over here when we were talking about the IWA token taxonomy framework, this is the properties of the eco project taxonomy, right? So every one of these that I showed up here, every one of these, the eco project, the modular benefit, the ecological claim, the process claim, all future mitigate, all of these have their own token taxonomy frameworks that are followed in minting these projects. And so this metadata, again, is time-stamped on the XRP ledger now, and then also saved on IPFS. So these files are immutable and publicly auditable and transparent. Just to also illustrate something else here. So the, for example, in the PMFMU token, if we go explore this, again, you'll see the history of when the pre-purchases were minted. And if we go to the source, so again, we're looking at the ecological project segregated account on the XRP ledger. And the other thing to keep in mind too is this account was activated by the ecological master project. So master account. So all of Intrinsic Methods accounts, registries accounts, they're all MPC wallets, and they are all using the activated feature to really connect these accounts through the XRP ledger. So as you can see right now, this is when it says activated account over here, this is that ecological project that we were looking at before. And then these are the trading orders that exist for the PMFMU on that project. And if we back up even one more layer, this is the Intrinsic Methods admin master wallet. And you can see again here where it's activated these different wallets that exist inside of the registry's ecosystem. Now, what I want to share with you is, as what we'd love for you to do today is, as Jim mentioned, this is the official launch of the Intrinsic Methods registry. And really, we need people to come and register and, start engaging with the platform. And one of the things that you can do to engage with us is, and also earn a really cool NFT at the same time is, once you register an account, let me go back just a second. Once you register your account and sign in, you'll see here on the sidebar, it says, get this badge now. What this is this is going to be a process. These are a unique commemorative badge that are numbered based on the person who's filled this out. So as you can see, I'm going to be the 10th person to fill out this survey. And what we're asking you to do is, please fill out the survey. And these questions are designed to help Jim understand customer insights and demands, and then also just kind of understand market sentiment. So I'm going to go through this real quick and just show you what this would look like. And as mentioned before, let me back out here real quick, just so I can show this to you. The other unique thing about this is, there's dual wallet solutions in here. And so when you register and create an account, you can create a registry account, an MPC wallet that is powered by Palisade. Or if you're already, using the XRP ledger and have a Zoom wallet, you can also connect that as well. But right now I'm going to be demonstrating using the Palisade's built-in wallet solution inside the Intrinsic Methods. So go back here. And these questions are designed, there is no right or wrong answer. They're just designed to be open for, what you might have been thinking of doing. And so I'm going to fill this out quickly here. I have these pre-entered, so just to save time here. So what's happening now is the metadata is being saved for the minting of the NFT. The transaction is being prepared, and the NFT metadata is being saved so the token can be minted. Might take a second for all the information to be saved. So there are a few things happening behind the scene right now. So multiple accounts are being engaged on the XRP ledger. The Intrinsic Methods rewards account, one of those activated accounts that we looked at before, is the one that's going to be minting the NFT. And hold on, I got to enter my OTP now. This is my wallet accepting the NFT offer from the Ecological Rewards account. And as you can see, I go to the Explorer here. So now we're looking at the actual sequence on the ledger up here. So this is the ID of this NFT on the XRP ledger. And similarly, we're asking you to do the same thing. So, please create an account, come get one of these one-of-a-kind commemorative NFTs. And then the other thing that also would love to have you partake in is, as mentioned before, this Brazil project now has PMFMUs live. So, would love to have you support this project. And just for example, to show you how that works. So right now there's actually offers. I've only have XRP in this wallet, so it's only showing me the XRP wallet. But for example, just real quick, just to give you a demonstration. But I'll purchase one of these. When it says it's creating a trust line, what that means is, on some of you might be familiar with EVM chains, people are able to send you any token, whether you want it or not. XRP Ledger is different in that you have to set up a trust line, so you have to allow to be receive a token. So that's what it meant when it said setting trust line. So through the DEX, someone could buy one PMFMU or they could buy as many PMFMUs want. But the beauty, again, by having this decentralized exchange is that for the carbon credits itself, it actually makes creates a complete transparency into the price history and trading history of the carbon credits. And so in the voluntary carbon market, that's a really important aspect to be able to know the trading history, right? And so the primary purpose behind carbon credits is not the buying and selling and trading, but it's actually the retiring of them, right? And that's when a business can use them for their ESG and carbon removal claims. After this finishes, I'll just quickly show you what it would look like in the. So again, we can see here that I just purchased a PMFMU off of the DEX. And then if I go to my holdings, you can see it in here. And what this means when it says swap is, so as mentioned, these are pre-purchase agreements for future mitigated units. And so once the trees are planted and have been verified by a third party and satellite review to be planted, then the future mitigated units would be issued, and owners of the pre-purchase agreements would swap these for the future mitigated units that they could retire for their claims. That's pretty much going to do it for the demo. I would love to open it up to questions and feedback. And
Great, Boone. Well, again, congratulations, Jim, on getting the carbon registry launched today with W3 SaaS from Blockchain Laboratories. Boone, there's a question around a term called DMRV. I think it's called digital measurement, reporting, and verification. And maybe you could just highlight really that acronym that's out in the industry and what's provided here with the carbon registry.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the industry, one of the hurdles and roadblocks is MRV of projects. So right today, it's a really slow, laborious process, and a lot of the bigger registries out there have really massive delays in getting projects live just because of these reasons. But technology today, like satellite and Internet of Things, really offer the ability to, streamline those MRV processes. And then, the D in the MRV is really about using those digital process and distributed measures, right? And so all of this MRV data for intrinsic methods projects, as highlighted before, is all stored in IPFS and time-stamped on the XRP ledger. And so again, even in the MRV process, we're just bringing radical transparency and streamlining those current roadblocks.
Great. And Jim, how are you planning to involve some of the local communities in reforestation projects?
Well, actually, the local communities are instrumental in these projects because we're using local nurseries that we certify to root maker standards. So they employ the local community. Then the trees are planted in the local community, and then there's incredible benefits from a standpoint as it improves the environment. We have the project we have in Mongolia. It will actually change the water table. For 6 months of the year, the rivers actually don't flow. And so by planting the number of trees we want to plant, it will actually bring back the water table.
Okay, so they're involved right from the beginning.
Oh, from the very beginning.
Really?
These projects basically are designed for the local communities. So and like in Brazil, you'll actually have municipalities are involved in the actual 50-year permanence of the trees. And the landowners are required to basically plant trees on a certain percentage of their land.
That's brilliant. And then as the progress and impact of the reforestation takes place, what data are you making available? Is that all part of the end-to-end technology in terms of the measurement of the trees as they progress?
Well, that's the beauty of the MRV of using the digital assets. We'll have all that data archived over time, all during the 50 years of the reforestation project. But also from another standpoint, we're going to, as these projects mature, I forgot to mention that one of the trees in the slide was actually the trees we planted in Brazil. So we'll be doing videos, educational work to basically show the world why planting a tree in trees is so important.
That's great. And I know, Boone, as you went over that demonstration, there was a lot you showed in terms of how everything came together. And even though we had to wait, can you just comment on what it would take without the technology behind the scenes? I mean, is it even possible today to bring this type of data together without the behind the scenes SaaS technology?
It's possible, but it's definitely, again, a large ordeal. So our team, Palisades team, and GBBC, we have all been collaborating on this process for over a year. And there's a lot of steps involved in getting all the pieces of the puzzle and getting all the technologies to work together. So really the beauty around W3 SaaS is, for projects like intrinsic methods like Jim, is instead of Jim and Intrinsic Methods having to become experts in blockchain technology and development, they actually can have a solution to power their use case and focus on their business instead of focusing on the tech stack.
That's wonderful. Paul, this is an interesting question here, but I mean, given everything around standards and trust that's coming in, do you think the carbon markets can eventually permeate the entire global financial system?
Well, I don't know if it'll get that big, but the pieces are in place. I think the first thing that was done is define the ecosystem of each of these use cases. As those build credibility, I do know for sure, because we talked to most of the financial institutions, that everyone is looking at this part of the market, and tokenization of assets is not going away. It's going to continue to grow, and the more credibility companies and buyers, sellers can bring to the marketplace, I think it's going to give more credibility to the financial institutions. But I will say one more thing. I think the ETF, the Bitcoin ETF that launched, was not only big because of Bitcoin, but the idea of an underlying asset being valued and validated as an investment instrument gives tremendous opportunities for us to hold on to. Kind of this future of tokenization is going to continue to grow. So my answer, yes, it's going to happen. It's just we need the credibility and growth.
Yeah, absolutely. Here. Keep adding your questions in. Tom, there's a question around phishing attacks. I think you touched on this earlier in your presentation, but how does your solution within this SaaS stack address the phishing attacks? Does it warn users about the suspicious login attempts?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the first thing to sort of address is like what is a phishing attack? And a phishing attack you can think of as like a cybersecurity attack where an individual or set of individuals is tricked into doing something they don't want to do. And in this instance, it's revealing some personal information such as a password or a private key or something like that. These come in numerous shapes and sizes. The really common one is what we call email phishing. So you receive an email from what looks like a legitimate sender, and then you're tricked into clicking a link and then giving over a password or some credit card information. But there's a number of others as well that are much more targeted to high-profile individuals or executives in companies with the aim of like really getting them to sort of give something away about the company to gain access into the wider platform. At Palisade, I think I touched on this very briefly earlier, but we've built out a set of controls that you can employ around your assets, but also your transactions. And it essentially means that you can set the counterparties that you want to interact with. And you can also set up second factor authentication or passkeys that must be enabled and used before you can actually sign off on a transaction. But I think the one that we see most use with is what we call 4 eyes checks. So if you sign off on a transaction or you approve on a transaction, you need at least one other person to approve that as well. So it just makes it a lot more difficult for an attacker to actually compromise you, because it has to go through a number of checks before it actually goes through to the blockchain.
All right, wonderful. Well, we're just about at time. So first of all, I'd like to thank all of the attendees today. Wonderful presentations by everyone. And again, if you'd like to become a sponsor or you have ideas of presentations for future talks, please contact this link, esgdigitalassets.com/contact us. We'll be sending out the information. We'll be sending out the recording, as well as access to signing up to the Intrinsic Methods registry as well. So thank you again, and with that, have a great day.
And I'd also just close with, I did put in the chat a link to Intrinsic Methods registry, and also encourage everyone, please feel free to register and create a wallet. And we thank you again for joining us today.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you all.